It's recording.
There's a whole bunch of callers, but
Yeah.
I
We
don't
gotta
see Richard
figure out-
Blumenthal or
We got to figure out which one is Blumenthal.
Okay, I got room, just put them in the back.
All right.
Take them then.
There's Blumenthal right there.
Okay.
He's unmuted too. That's good.
Okay, good.
I thought I muted everybody, but
Can you get share screen?
do you want me to mute everybody?
yeah.
And unmute him.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. The thing is, I can't.
I'm usually behind too many.
Is there any way to make that the whole
Yeah.
page?
I can't access the
You gotta keep your separation.
sharing through
29
WebEx.
inches separation.
I'm trying to think if it's sharing through WebEx. Like I had the whole screen when I was just Gmail, but now it's.
That's fine. They're gonna have to deal with that.
All right.
You know what?
What are we sharing now?
And you can go back and forth between your tabs.
You're sharing because it says stop sharing.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I can't control the WebEx participants
Right.
when he's using the computer to share.
You can take the computer, someone can advance the slides for
Right.
you, and then I can just read off the iPad.
But is Richard Blumenthal gonna say something now?
Yes, he is.
Oh, so then you're going to need the microphone next to the
So
computer.
stop sharing
Well,
and
We have
Is the microphone through here?
that's
Because
hooked in. It's
we should be able to hear
we
people
should be able to hear
talking.
talking. So
well, we can't hear people here. They'd be quiet.
But where's the
can you
speaker?
can you check with Senator Blumenthal to see if we can hear him?
He's unmuted.
All right,
But so
unmute.
is like Paula.
So just ask him if he can hear us.
Okay.
Turn this on. Power button.
Can we hear anything through that?
Do you have a volume here? Where's your volume switch?
Oh, there we
Okay,
go.
we're going to get started. If we could ask you to sit down and try and get comfortable and be quiet. We've got, I think, Richard Blumenthal
You can
and
hear him.
someone else that is going to speak. And then
Senator
we'll
Blumenthal,
switch
can you
to,
hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, just hold on a second. We'll have you speak in a few minutes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to speak right after you.
Well, good morning, and thank you for coming to the program here.
Speak right over.
Oh, sorry. All right. Yeah. Good. This presentation will give you an update on the sewer project in the beach area. And the program was formed by the three beach association, Old Lyme Shores, Old Colony, and Miami Beach. The presidents and the WPCA chairs and our own WPCA chair, they worked on this program. We thank them very much. I'll introduce the people who were involved. From Old Lyme Shores, we have President Brian Even. Over here. Good. WPCA Chair Al Roy. We have Old Colony Beach, Doug Whalen. And Frank Noe is the WPCA Chair. Miami Beach, Mark Mangello. And his WPCA Chair, Scott Boulanger. And last we have Rich Prendergast, the Old Lyme WPCA Chair. John Cunningham, who is on the WPCA for Old Lyme Shores, will actually run the program. It'll probably be 30 to 40 minutes, PowerPoint. And following the program, there will not be a typical question and answer period because questions were requested to be submitted through the internet, and many have come in. Some of the questions will be answered in the slides you will see, and then some that were not will be addressed by the group at the end. Members of the panel will be available after the program if you wish to speak with them. So obviously, this is a very big and expensive project, and there's some strong emotions about it. So we please ask you to be respectful of everyone here and act responsibly because we want to have a good outcome. We do want to recognize some invited guests. Senator Richard Blumenthal will be speaking to us, and we have our state senator, Paul Formica, who will say a few words as well. So we'll turn it over to Senator.
He's on.
Okay.
I hope Richard Blumenthal, and really appreciate your invitation to join you for this important meeting. And my thanks to Griswold and to the 3 private beach associations as well. So, the local leaders, including my colleague, for their leadership. Obviously, we share a common goal: prevent pollution at the most affordable cost. Senator Murphy and I sought federal money, earmark process, congressionally directed spending. We asked and endorsed a proposal for $11.2 million after the referendums that were conducted and the requests for local leadership received. Unfortunately, the number of applications for earmarks doubled this year, and this one was unsuccessful. The process begins again in a matter of months, and we're prepared to again seek federal funding for this very worthwhile goal. The community leaders at this meeting and others are the ones to make a judgment about exactly how to go about doing it, the mechanics and the systems that should be adopted. But I think Senator Murphy and I are committed to helping in whatever way we can with federal funding. And I'm on this call primarily to listen. My staff will be monitoring it. I apologize that I can't be with you in person because of a long-standing commitment that I've made here in Bridgeport right now. Just got off I-95 with it. I thought it was quick. What else to do? But I really appreciate your invitation to talk to me. I think I have a pretty good sense of who's represented in the meeting. But anything more I can do, listen and to learn, to explore other programs. Remember that the infrastructure program provided trillions of dollars in our country, and a lot of directed water. That infrastructure going to the state directly, the so-called earmark. So I am committed to every funding in conjunction with First Bald, who has been very gracious in with other leaders, boards, and citizens associated with the private associations. So I think we a good combination, and really honored and pleased to be part of this conversation. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we will have State Senator Formica speak to us.
Morning, Senator. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Formica. I'm the current state senator of the 20th district, which includes the great town of Old Lyme, and have been working on a project like this for the last 15 years. This project first came for discussion when I was first selectman in the town of East Lyme, and we had sewer issues there through Waterford to the treatment plant in New London. Conversations began way back then with our sewer engineer and myself and others throughout the towns. to try to figure a best way forward to manage any sewer expansion. For one reason or another, it's taken a long time to get to this point. For my purpose here, as I wind down my career, I've been trying to support whatever this community's decision is. And currently, as the senator alluded to, there's a lot of dollars, a lot of federal dollars that are around. Not sure what he's got tapped into, but I've spoken with Mark Boughton, who is handling the over $5 billion of infrastructure money that's coming into the state of Connecticut. We've outlined the project. We know that adding sewers is a huge cost to each individual homeowner. And we're trying our best to provide some of those infrastructure dollars, should the decision be made to go with sewers, to offset the cost of accessibility to sewers and any fees that are associated with that. And that's kind of what I've been working on. Commissioner Boughton, who is the Commissioner of Department of Revenue Services and overseeing all this money's distribution, is a fan of the project moving forward if that's what the decision of the community is. So my job is to keep him informed on what's going on and to work with the people that are the decision makers here in the community. Should there be an opportunity to do one thing or another, this is infrastructure. And infrastructure is covered under these dollars that the state of Connecticut has found they've been able to access and should be coming very closely. I will just close with one quick comment. As first selectman, we had a huge water issue that I was able to work with DEEP and the Department of Public Health Water Division to try to solve. And that was the inclusive of a water interconnection between the town of East Lyme and the town of New London's water supply, which basically allowed East Lyme to be water neutral for the year. We had to shut off our wells during the course of the summer when we have similar weather we've had now, hot and dry weather. And that cost us 1 million gallons a day because we have aquifers that we provided. And so by building this interconnection, we were able to transfer our excess water from September to May and then bring it back from May to September when we really needed the water. We moved the water into London, then we brought it back so it was neutral. I mention that because Old Lyme is probably going to be facing a similar problem with water at some point in the future. I know Connecticut Water is working on some solutions. And if sewers are decided here and there's a trench that's opened in the ground, I would seriously consider the people that are leading this charge and all of you to consider throwing a water pipe in there, cap it on either end and use it 10 years from now if the situation becomes critical. But you'll have the pipe open, you'll have the ground open, the state will have to pave all over that. And it just might make some sense to think about something like that. I've mentioned that to Boughton about extra dollars to the project, should that even be possible. And I don't know if it's possible. But I bring that out for your consideration because we could be able to solve 2 birds with 1 stone. If you decide to go with sewers, there'll be a water solution in there at some point. If you don't, and there are other solutions that come forward, I know there's conversation about alternatives to the typical sewer construction opportunities that we've seen over the years, then I think that's what meetings like this are for, to have those discussions in a reasonable and honorable way and to make the best decision for the people who support the town of Old Lyme. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with me. I'm here. My term doesn't end until the first week in January. You want to get a hold of me, I'm at senatorformica.com. I have a few cards left that I'll happily hand out, but the first selectman knows how to get a hold of me. And please contact me if I can be of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Now it's time for the presentation. So Mr. Cunningham will lead us through that.
Good morning. Thank you all for attending. I imagine that this morning we're graced. If I was going to know there was going to be intro music, I think I might have selected something a bit different, but my wife would have been embarrassed by that. I don't know. Can everybody hear me okay? So I imagine that a lot of the people that are here this morning are very interested in this project and. Okay. I'm going to hold the microphone instead. I imagine that many of the people that are here this morning may have questions and contentions about the project, and I'm hoping that this presentation will help answer some of those questions that you have and allay some of the concerns. But the elephant in the room is, of course, the cost, and that's something that we're very cognizant of and is our main concern at this point. In terms of the expectations for this morning, here we go. We're going to talk about the wastewater system as a regional solution. Over the years, I started getting involved in this back in 2010 in the Oline Shores Association. We have had quite a lot to do, and a lot of it has been political, organizational, trying to get agreements between different entities. And if you look today, it's pretty impressive that we've got 3 private beaches in the town of Oline and the Connecticut Deep, all aligned and on the same page. And I wanted to define a few terms that you'll hear in this presentation to give some context. And the first one is a consent order. And this is not an agreement. It's not a contract between entities where there's the ability to just say, I'm tired of this, I want to be done. It's an order, and it's enforceable, and it's enforceable by the state, and we've agreed by those terms. There is an economic viability clause in it, and that's the thing of most concern right now. The second term is an equivalent dwelling unit, and that is sort of the unit of measure that we use in each association to gauge how much waste is generated. And the third one is benefit assessment, and that's really valuing the benefit that is accrued to each property and each EDU in the system. So what I'd like to do this morning is give you a little bit of an overview of the history. I did this within our association this spring, and it was fairly well received. It answered a lot of questions, and when the group started talking about having a joint meeting, I shared that presentation with them, and they asked me to go ahead and present this with you. Yes.
I'm trying to make it bigger, that's all. You
Oh.
keep talking.
No, it's fine. I can see
Do
it.
you want the one before?
No, that's,
Okay. No, you keep
it's
talking.
okay the way it is.
Okay.
It's blurry. I'm not familiar with the WebEx software, so. Or PCs.
John, just go through it.
All right.
Some of the words you just.
Yeah, so there's a timeline for the project that started back in 2010, and the different things are color coded, but basically we've got intermunicipal agreements, and those are the agreements between the town of East Lyme and the beach associations between the town of East Lyme and Old Lyme. We've got engineering studies, which are the ones that are in green, and then we've got individual beach association milestones in blue, and the dark blue is the consent order from deep. And as you can see, the timeline is nice and green. And then we've had a black swan event with the pandemic, which threw everything into chaos. And I don't know if any of you are small business people in the audience, but that period did a lot of very bad things to supply chains and to customer bases and pricing for things. And it did the same thing to our project here.
Potter, please.
Sure. So the basic problem that we're confronted with is we have land that is by the shore of Long Island Sound, which has a huge economic benefit for the state of Connecticut. And our septic systems, for the most part, were not designed for the kind of load that they endure today. And so they leach into the groundwater. That creates immediate local problems. And then it also runs off into the sound, which creates problems in the sound. And so These are, problems with economic viability, problems with ecological stability, and hazards for human use of the sound. And I think it was in the early 80s that DEEP said this needs to be fixed. So this is not a new problem. It's been a 40, 50 year ongoing problem, and we're trying to address it. As I said before with the consent order, the harshest interpretation of it would be, hey, this is not appealable. We're going to make you do this. We've been fortunate that the state of Connecticut has actually been a very supportive and collaborative partner, and they have not taken that stance or that tone with us. And we think that that works to our benefit, given the current circumstances where we are now being squeezed by the economics. Our shared objectives are to construct a solution that addresses those problems, that remediate the pollution impact of the sound and to our local properties, and be in compliance with the consent order. Now, the challenges that we face specific to meeting those requirements are, we've got a very high density of development, very small lots, shallow groundwater, fast draining soils because it's sandy, the water moves through it quickly, and then we have the additional flood risk because of the elevation of the soils. So drill down into these a little bit more. High density of development means that you get water aggregating in places. You've got people's drinking water in their wells is next to the septic system. You've got water courses where the water is running off into the sound and through people's yards. And all of these are going to, or do require public health variances. And right now, most of these would be not allowable. They're only allowed because they're grandfathered in. So this puts a huge burden on the sound and the properties. The undersized lots, we have, I think, only about 2%, maybe even a smaller amount of lots are what we call conforming, which means if you were starting new, you would be denied the opportunity to build a dwelling on that lot because you wouldn't be able to support the necessary wastewater. Even if you were borderline, it would require a custom solution, which means an engineered solution, which is going to drive up the complexity and the cost pretty significantly. Shallow groundwater. The standard leaching fields are 36 to 48 inches deep, and we're looking at 29 inches in places. There just isn't any place for the water to go. The flood risk, we are all familiar with the storms and the impact that they can have, but we also have just rain flooding. And we get sometimes flash floods that come in and wash things through, and then we're left with standing water and pools of things. If you have an engineered system, it's got electrical components in it. Those have to be encapsulated. It creates a whole bunch of other challenges for you and puts you at risk of very expensive repairs. And again, the fast draining soils make it difficult to mitigate the polluting effect of the wastewater by having it drain naturally through the soil and break down. So if in that timeline slide, you saw the engineering studies, and there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of engineering studies. And they explored 4 options. Conventional septic system upgrades, so take care of the system that you've got. If it starts to fail, remediate it. If it needs to be replaced, do the replacement. A lot of that can't be done on site and requires a secondary site within the lot, or you have to move to an advanced treatment unit, which is an engineered system, which is a lot more complex and requires fairly expensive maintenance relative to other solutions. Or you can move to a small community system, which was also explored, and that was the Cherrystone site, or a centralized sewer system. And so I'll talk about each of those. So first, the upgrades to the existing systems. This was explored. A survey was done of the lots that were in the associations. And as I said before, these lots don't meet current codes. Because of the site conditions, it would be impossible to have compliance. Everything is too tight together and the geology just doesn't work. And all this would really do is kick the can down the road and demand another solution at another time. And I think, in some of the nearby communities, you're seeing that they have taken this path and they're having to revisit their decisions. The next opportunity that was explored was a small community system. And that would be putting a smaller wastewater management system in a place like the Cherry Stones location, but it wasn't suitable because of the water supply to local homes there. There are also very high construction and operational costs associated with that. And I'll get to that a little bit later. So this was not a viable solution to pursue. And then, as I mentioned, the engineered septic systems, the advanced treatment units are also very challenging. Depending on your lot conditions, you may have to bring in additional soil. It'll be above ground. It'll change the utility of your property. And you're going to have to make sure that you go through the proper spring startup rituals. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And then you're going to have to do repair on that. And each system can vary significantly. If you don't have the space to do it, it could be even more expensive than it would cost to do the sewer. So that was the last option available. And the reason that this option was selected was because it satisfies 100% of the properties. This is a solution that does work. The technology's been around for 4,000 years. We understand how to do it fairly efficiently. And it is the lowest cost to build, which may not sound like it's what you believe, but if you add up the individual costs to address each individual property, it's going to be significantly more expensive. And the operational costs are about 5 times cheaper on an annual basis than any of the other solutions. So the non-sewer solutions, they're going to cost 50 to 80% more upfront. The operation and maintenance costs are going to be 5 times greater. They don't satisfy everybody's needs. And in some cases, you can't even find a solution for it. And then what would you do? That puts all of the burden on the individual homeowner. So, as I said, there's only about 2% of the properties in the associations that are conforming and could go forward without any variances or issues. And that really isn't in the best interest of the community. So what we want to do is create a solution that's effective, inclusive, economical, compliant, supported, reliable, maintainable, and safe. And after many, many years and many, many experts and many, many stakeholders engage in these conversations, the majority has agreed that this should be the way forward, providing we can do it in an economically feasible manner. So one of the things that impressed me early on in our association was our association president, Paul Roween, looked at this problem and he said, look, we've got people in the association who are adamant about we need new roadways. We've got others who have serious stormwater problems, and we've got others who have wastewater problems. And nobody wanted, they might be interested in 1 or 2 of these, but not all of them. And what he was able to do was build a coalition of 85% of our association members that said, yeah, I want one of these things because it's very important to me, and I'm willing to spend a little bit more so that I can help out my neighbor's problem as well. And so we had an agreement that we would do this as a unified project. And so going to the accomplishments that we've achieved over the last 10, 12 years, we've gotten all the intermunicipal agreements in place, and that may not seem like a lot, but politics is always very difficult. And I think it's a huge accomplishment by the team that's been involved in that. We've added the town of Old Lyme, which at one point, I think it was a little bit adversarial between the private beaches and the town. That's not the case anymore, and that's a good thing. We've had a great working relationship with DEEP. We've been able to get them to provide us with immediate grant funding and long-term financing, both of which have huge financial value. So we've successfully completed the planning, the contracting, and the design phases. And I think if it wasn't for the disruption of the pandemic, we probably would have broken ground already. And even with all of this, we still have fairly strong support, at least in our association. And I think you'd see that would map over to the other associations as well. So now we get to, the nut that we have to crack, which is how are we going to pay for this? How's it going to be funded? And what's it going to cost? And each of the entities involved has a slightly different profile for where the cost burden is, and the members of each association will come up and talk to those numbers specifically. But as I said before, it's the sewers, it's the stormwater, it's the roadway paving, and the drinking water. We've been fortunate that Connecticut Water Company actually put the bill for putting in new water mains. Now, when we talk about cost allocations, we've got our entity-specific costs, which is in association costs or in Soundview costs for those components. And then there are shared infrastructure costs, which are the pump stations and the wastewater pipe, the main that has to run over through East Lyme to New London. In funding sources, we've got our note from Connecticut, 20 years at 2%. For those of you who are in finance, you know that is worth a lot in the current 8% interest rate environment. Inflation could be running as high as 15% in some cases. So there's a real huge value to that. And then there's the grant funding, which we've been pursuing. I spent 5 years as a DoD contractor, and it doesn't surprise me that you put in a request for funding and it gets rejected. You have to just keep going back again and again. Of course, we don't want this to go on too long, but you just need to be persistent. And then the other funding source is going to be association by association, determining how they want to cost share among the members, whether it's going to be a flat total amount divided by each EDU or property, whether there's going to be a progressive valuation, if there's anything in the bylaws that requires you to put this in as a tax so that higher value properties pay more than lower value properties, or whether it's going to be some aspects of it are going to be metered and done by utilization or consumption. So when we talk about the shared infrastructure costs, I don't know if you can see that, which is a shame. We'll post this online so that you can drill down, and the presentation was designed so that you could sit down and read it independently without having to have someone interpret it for you, and we'll provide contact information if you have specific follow-up questions as well. But you're looking at over 900 EDUs in the total system, and it's nearly evenly split. The largest is the Soundview community at 270, and the smallest is Old Lyme Shores at 192. So you're in that 200 to 225 area, splitting them. And in terms of the shared infrastructure cost, our latest estimates from earlier this year are that we're talking about $16.5 million. And the splits would range from $3.5 million to $5 million. And then we get a 25% grant for that, and we get the 2% 20-year underwriting, which if you did net present value calculations on it, is worth another 15 to 20%. So effectively, the state of Connecticut is telling us that they're willing to subsidize half the cost of this. So now we can move on, and the first association will be Miami Beach.
Yeah, so unfortunate, anyways, good morning. It's unfortunate you guys can't read the numbers. As I said, we'll definitely have these things posted. I'll just say briefly where Miami Beach is at. We have, unfortunately, a large community, a lot more roads to cover, so a lot more mileage, if you will, more pipes, more tar to be put down or dig up and to be put down. So our numbers are going to be significantly higher than the other associations in town. But just briefly, the cost to put in a sewer system in Miami Beach, I'll just read the number. Excuse me. I'll just read the number as being a little over $16 million. That includes the shared infrastructure. If you just look at the Miami Beach Association's internal structure, it's just a little bit over $13 million. If we add in stormwater, which we've all talked about, that's just adding another 10, 15% or $2 million. So the overall package is a rather high package. But again, I wanted to emphasize in Miami Beach's situation, we're different than the other associations with poor soils, shallow area, so it's pretty flat. So it's very hard for us to get to where we need to be for the gravity system. So that is significantly increasing the cost for Miami Beach Association. But as it was talked about earlier from John, we could not go and look for funding. We couldn't look for anything until we understood the magnitude of the cost associated to the project. So if we went as an example and asked for some assistance outside of DEEP's Clean Water Fund, we wouldn't be able to intelligently give them a number to put down. So this is where we're at the moment. Lastly, I guess I'll say is just the numbers are the numbers. We're trying to figure out how to do this thing properly. It was said that we agreed, and Miami Beach agreed, if we're going to tear up, Paul alluded to it earlier in his discussion, if we're going to rip up a road to put in a sewer system, that's the time to start looking at your infrastructure as a whole. So Miami Beach, a decade ago now, or over a decade ago now, had made a decision consciously to take a look at our stormwater and our domestic water supply so that we upgrade our systems so that we're in current a better place than we are today. So that's why our costs are higher. Again, large area. So thank you. Colin.
Good morning. My name is Frank Noe, and chairman of the WPCA for Old Colony Beach. As we look at this slide, these are estimated costs at this point. Just want to make sure everybody understands their estimated cost. We don't have a cost associated to this project until the last shovel is put in the ground upon conclusion of the project. That's when we determine our EDUs. So the estimate for our sewer project and roads will be included in the project is $8,484,417. That would be based on some grant money from the Clean Water Fund at the 25%. So we've received already 25% grant money. So obviously it would be a little bit more expensive if we didn't have that 25%. So the annual cost for Old Colony Beach at this point, again, estimated annually would be about $2,600 a year. If we were to do a biannual, it would be about $1,300 a year. If we were to hopefully get some grant money and promising some grant money, we estimated this at the $11.2 million that we had put in an application for. If that was to come to be, with that grant money, our share of that money would bring us down to an annual cost of about $1,767 a year, $1,767 a year, and the biannual would be about $884 a year. So Old Colony Beach would be substantially a little bit less than the other beaches that you're going to see. The stormwater, Old Colony Beach was fortunate enough. You don't see a cost in there. We were fortunate enough about 2 years ago to go out for a bonding and get a loan from Webster Bank. We were fortunate at 15-year loan at around 3.25%. And we're so glad we did that a couple of years ago, because I wouldn't want to go out there today at today's interest rates. So we're already prepared for the stormwater money. So Old Colony Beach is in good shape in that area. As far as our stormwater drain improvements, Then we're also going to do, also the stormwater, we're going to do those improvements. We have sightline improvements, intersection sightline improvements, make sure that our roads have good sightline on our roads. We're going to have painted stop bars at all intersections, just a white strip bar right there at the intersection so you get you to stop. All our roads will be two-way with line striping. We'll have traffic calming speed bumps. We'll have those rolling speed bumps. Oh, I'm sorry, humps, not bumps. Hump, but not bump. You can do whatever you want. You could bump, you could hump. And proper road pitch to remove any ponding, any what's called bird baths, where you see all the water just puddling up after a snowstorm. So that's our overall view of Old Colony Beach. Looking forward to moving this project forward. I've been involved with this project since its infant stage 12 years ago. And hopefully I'll see it finished before I lose any more hair. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for coming out this morning. My name is Al Roy with Old Lyme Shores, WPCA. I happen to be the chairman. I've been involved for a far shorter time than anyone else you hear speaking today. Thank you. Ooh.
I went way
I
too
did
far.
that.
That was me. Keep talking.
And I'm happy to try to help move this project to some logical conclusion. As alluded to by John, there are different cost profiles for each of the associations, and you're seeing evidence of that as we get up and talk to our individual numbers. We are talking in terms of estimated costs based on best known available information. The estimated cost will come into better focus before we ever went to construction, because we get a number of bids and we keep everyone posted on how that cost flushes out. No pun intended. So, in terms of Old Lyme Shores overall cost, we're looking at $11.9 million altogether. Our bond resolution is at 9.6. So we've got some internal issues and discussions to resolve before we move forward, much like some of the other associations. The total cost per household annually would be currently at $3,730. Sorry, but if we could add in a infusion of cash from a federal grant, it would be around $2,900. So you heard earlier, and you may remember, we initially asked for $14 million. The state Senate appropriations committee took it up at 11.2. So this example is the 11.2 cash infusion example. We're going to continue to pursue those avenues and hope to bring the overall cost down for all our residents. So, not to dwell on it, but the cost drivers do vary significantly between the associations. In Old Lyme Shores, there's probably 25% or more of the area that's severely impacted by significant ledge. We've verified that when Connecticut Water was doing the water installation, and they encountered significant difficulty in getting trenches open and pipes in the ground. Old Lyme Shores, like some of the associations, haven't taken on a major infrastructure improvement program in decades, and our roads really show. They really need a lot of work. We also have to improve stormwater management on our properties. That, again, as John pointed out, may not affect all of our residents, but surely affects, I don't know, somewhere upward of 30%. And also contributes to fast running water runoff directly to the sound. So we have a way to mitigate that and improve that overall flow. So, with that, we're still working hard as a group, making sense of this whole thing, trying to get the funding we needed to allow this to move forward in some logical fashion. And just want to thank everyone for their attention today. And we'll move on to Soundview.
Okay, I'm Rich Prendergast. I'm the chairman of the WPCA Commission for the Town of Old Lyme. We're the Old Lyme Private Beach Association, coordinating with them. And was said earlier is sometimes contentious. It was, and I'm glad that we've gotten to the place where we can share resources and lower the cost for everyone. This presentation for the Soundview part, you can see here on the, well, maybe you can see here on the right, you have the sewer parts of $9,357,000, part of our bond referendum. Then you have the additional cost of $879,000 for the IMAs. A total cost for the was $10,233,000, and that's the total cost before we take out the state's funding. So that's a 7% increase from what we thought this was going to be in 2019. It used up all our contingencies, all our extras, used up everything. The cost when you take out the state's existing 25% grant funding is around $8 million. We thought it would be $7.44 million in 2019 or earlier. This includes shared costs, the internals, which is the Soundview houses in the streets. It also includes the intermunicipal agreements. From there, we patching the roads that are included in it, and since those are public roads, the town will repave those roads. That's excluded from this cost. Drinking water has already been handled, and the stormwater is a separate funding, it's a separate project. So the biannual amount is what we plan on charging residents if this goes through and it's successful. If this is what the community wants. $1,066 per average house, or $623 if we get additional federal funding that we hope to get, that we just found out recently we did not get, that we should continue to pursue, and I think there's some more discussion about that later. I also want to mention that this is to put it in the same format to be comparable to the private beach associations. The Soundview beaches are, Soundview houses, we plan on doing a tier system. So this is the average cost for the average house. Smaller houses pay less, larger houses pay more. Those houses that are equivalent of 3 or 4 or 5 houses, they're planned to pay more. And I think that's it for me. We go to the next section, which is some additional costs, and I'll give the microphone back to John.
Right, so as Rich said, there are additional costs, and I think this is where it gets even more real for each individual person who's involved in the project, and that's the connection costs that you're going to have for water and for sewer. And we don't have numbers on this slide because that can vary significantly based on your geology and your location and your requirements. So our advice there is to discuss those particular cost issues with your individual WPCA board members and save that for outside of this presentation, because they would be more familiar with it and be able to give you better quality answers. And the late breaking news has been mentioned before is we had applied for senatorial funding or Senate appropriations, and that had not come through. It's common to need to go through many iterations. But our existing agreements with the state of Connecticut and with the different municipalities have drop dates on them. So we're going to have to exert some pressure on the funding sources and say, we understand that you may have other people that have been asking you for longer than us, but we're here and we're going to run out of opportunities to do this, and we would like your support. If not, we may have to suspend this. And that's a very real possibility, and we're prepared for that as well. So with that in mind, our next steps are to look at our interim funding obligations, which are due at the end of January. And what that means is, as previously envisioned, we had financing agreements with the state of Connecticut so that we were spending money on design phase and some of the work that had to be done before shovels went in the ground. And they paid for that for us and underwritten that. If we don't start construction by a certain date, then we have to start paying that money back. Financing terms are favorable, which is a good thing, but obviously we would like to roll that into the future and not have to incur that cost now. We're going to continue to pursue other grant sources. You know, we've talked about pursuing other federal funds because that's who's printing all the money right now. But we may have better luck dealing with the state because it's more local and because people may be more favorably disposed to helping us solve this problem. We're also going to continue exploring other solutions for mitigating costs. Are all of the elements of the project necessary? Are there ways that we can do things a little bit more inexpensively and defer some of the costs or avoid some of the cost? And as Rich said, we've got referenda that we've held where our membership has authorized a certain level of spending, and it's clear that we're going to exceed that. We're going to have to go back and get approval again if we're going to move this forward. And so those of you who are opposed to it, you're going to have your chance to make your argument saying this isn't worth doing. We don't want you to support that. And we've been able to maintain collaborative and productive relationships with everybody involved, and we're going to continue to do that. If you're in opposition to this moving forward, we hear you, we understand. We don't want to spend a lot of money on this either. So if you've got ideas, share them. And now there's I guess there were some pre-submitted questions, and hopefully the presentation answered many of them, but there were some that were outside the scope of what we had prepared. That was one option.
Thank you, John, and thank you everybody for coming today. This is a very important project for all the shoreline. It's also important for the whole town of Old Lyme because, to be honest, Long Island Sound is Old Lyme. I mean, that's what we're here for. And most of the people that are here, you enjoy Long Island Sound, you enjoy the scenery, you enjoy the swimming and everything. So it's important that we try and get this project off the ground with a shovel into the ground as soon as possible. We had 38 questions that were submitted to the group, and out of those 38 questions, most of them got answered in this PowerPoint presentation. Just to let everybody know, each individual WPCA has agreed to put this PowerPoint presentation on their websites. So when you get back, if you're Soundview, you can go to the Old Lyme website, Old Lyme Shores, Old Colony Beach, Miami Beach, they'll have them on their websites also. The first question that we took was, how are the wastewater issues that have been identified by the state of Connecticut currently being addressed while this project is pending, and to avoid any further health and safety risks? What is the update on residential drinking water? What will be done to mitigate the damage that is being done to wells due to the current outdated inferior wastewater systems? The answer is we have not received any further assistance from the state of Connecticut or have been given other advice to avoid future health and safety risks other than the consent order that describes how to remove the pollution issue. The drinking water updates will come from Connecticut Water Company and the Department of Public Health. The second question, what is the plan to address the wastewater issues if the project is abandoned due to cost? Will the plan be like what is done in Old Saybrook? Will beaches be closed? The answer, it is not our intent to abandon this project. The goal of this project is to complete the sewer program in an economically feasible and timely fashion. We do not have plans that are like Old Saybrook. In Old Saybrook, we've talked to people that are working on that project, and there's over 700 houses on the shoreline that still have not been able to get approval for an on-site system and are looking for alternative solutions that are acceptable to DEP. Other houses that were near the shoreline have complicated systems that have cost up to $70,000 to install due to the lot size and groundwater levels. Also, those systems have an expensive yearly maintenance cost to maintain it. The other answer about the water or the beaches being closed, there is the possibility of the beaches closing if the Ledge Light Health District testing shows levels that exceed public health limits for swimming. The next question, the wastewater issue has further been exacerbated by COVID. Why isn't the state allocating federal COVID dollars for this project, which does align with funding guidelines? The answer, there is some COVID dollars that have been put towards the sewer project, and we continue to look for more types of funding that can be applied to this project. I will let everybody know that after the information went off on Channel 3 the other day, I received a phone call about 2 o'clock in the afternoon after I did my presentation at 12. And I was informed at 2 o'clock that we did not receive the 11.2 million funds from the Senate Appropriations Committee. But I was also told at 2 o'clock that Senator Murphy's office and Senator Blumenthal's office is committed to work with us and asked if we can get some dates to them so they can sit down with us and go over it. So they are committed. They are going to work with us. So we're not finished yet. And we are going to look for those COVID dollars, and we're going to look for infrastructure dollars that have been passed. What data is there from the Ledge Light Health District testing within the past 5 years to indicate that area septic systems are polluting Long Island Sound? There has been beach water testing from Ledge Light Health District that has identified high bacteria levels, which caused them to put out swimming advisories to all the beaches in the project area. Next question, will the main transmission pipe on Route 156 going to New London require costly maintenance due to reduced flows during off-season months? The system is designed to handle low and high flows without any problems. The yearly operations and maintenance fees will handle those costs. If I decide to sell my home, will I have to pay my 20-year sewer lien in full at the time of sale? The answer is the 20-year lien is transferable at the time of sale. If the sewers are the best future solution to address wastewater issues along Old Lyme beaches, why would White Sands and Hawks Nest be excluded from this project? White Sands Beach, along with Griswold Point and other coastal parts of Old Lyme, were deemed a lower risk due to more space between houses, open fields, better soil conditions, and greater depth to groundwater. There are several houses that have basements as an indicator of deep depth in groundwater. Hawks Nest is not excluded from sewers, but is being studied and likely to be added later. Are we likely to see future assessments and fee increases to update the New London facility? Yes, we will participate in maintaining the treatment plant based on our volume of use, which is much smaller than our loan to build our part of the program. Our annual sewer fees will be built in. They will build a fund to cover these costs. The next question, I keep reading the New London can handle the increase in waste from us, but have heard that they have to build a larger treatment facility, which originally they planned on just charging the new applicants for the cost. That would be us. The answer, New London did not build a bigger plant for us. Their plant rating was increased since they invested in more efficient equipment and the reduction of what is called an inflow and infiltration, or an I&I, which it reduces processing stormwater as sewer water. We are purchasing a very small part of their extra capacity, so our responsibility for New London would only be between 1.5 or 3% of their actual costs. So that, we're like 1.5 to 3%. If they do have any increases, that's all we're responsible for. Question: can an independent subcommittee be formed ensuring fair and reasonable questions, issues, and practices? There are many issues that have to be resolved, and this project has the potential to economically ruin many seniors with set incomes. The answer is, you may not be aware, but we have had 7 studies that have been performed that all point in the direction we are going. The town formed a task force in 2013, which restarted the WPCA and added volunteer members with various complementary backgrounds that led to hiring professional engineers to complete an evaluation. There is a repeat theme of trying alternate solutions, which has been evaluated to get to this place. And those are all the questions we have to this point. There were some questions on there that were specific to individual WPCAs. Those WPCA chairmen and presidents have received those questions, and they will follow up with you at a later date. That's the end of our presentation. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. We do have a lot of work to do. I will tell you this, that we have meetings set up with Rosa DeLaura's office in the next couple of weeks. We have meetings set up with Senator Murphy's office and Senator Blumenthal's office in the next couple of weeks. We are also looking to pursue a meeting with Commissioner Bowden. So we want to thank all of our invited guests here. Paul, thank you for coming down. And we appreciate all your help and support in this program. So thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks for your help.
Good. We
As
worked.
always.
Effort to get that up, huh?
Michelle answered the phone, so thank God for her. That's all I have to say. We couldn't have done it if she didn't answer the phone. So
Michelle Hayes?
no, Norin.
What was wrong?
Wow.
We had the wrong login?
We had the wrong email.
You shut this off?
You want me to stop the meeting?
Yeah, went well. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, it was great. It worked, you know.
Thanks. I gotta go.
This one, third, I think.